Let's build a command squad. Hello, I'm Marcel.
And I'm Mrs. Snakeworks. This is a box for the command squad. We need to remove the shrink wrap first. Let's get rid of that. So this is the box. The front cover has a picture of the squad built. There's also some safety gumph that nobody ever reads. There's art featuring Imperial Fists and Sons of Horus on the sides. The back of the box shows the complete and beautifully painted miniatures.
Are you guys ever interested in what's on the actual box? You know, the art and things. Or would you rather I just skipped it and moved on? Please let me know in the comments below. Okay, so we can open the box and slide all of the contents out. This box appears quite full. So inside we first have an instruction booklet. We also have the new Command Squad sprue, a Mark VI Space Marine sprue, and this one is the same as the normal Mark VI sprue, a Mark VI Marine accessory sprue, a baggie of bases. These bags are much better than the old crisp packet style bags they used to come in. We can reuse this one. There's also a new decal sheet. Apparently, these Iron Warriors and Salamanders decals are an indicator of the new upcoming boxed set, which is allegedly going to have those two legions on the box art. I'm not sure if that's true or not though. I did, however, hear there will be Saturnine Terminators in it, which sounds amazing. I love those designs, I think they're really cool. The old massive shoulder pauldron with a big, well, I say big, it's a small ball head. Let's have a closer look at that new sprue. There are a lot of interesting parts on here. Some swords and some shields, some nice shoulder pads, artificer helmets, and of course some really nice looking parts to make a standard bearer, which is what I'm most looking forward to. As per usual, it's a good idea to have a quick glance through the instructions to see if anything weird is going to crop up, but it all looks to be fairly straightforward. It's more of a thing with Forge World kits or resin kits, as they can be a little more fiddly, I think. The plastic kits are a lot easier.
To remove parts from the sprue, I use a pair of Tamiya clippers. They allow us to get quite close to the parts without chewing them up. Cheap ones will do that. To clean up the mould lines, we use our dear friend Andy the knife. You just have to scrape them off. For fiddlier ones, we sometimes like to break out the files, but 90% of the time, Andy works just fine. So our first pieces to assemble are these: the front and rear section of the Marine's torso. The detail on these Mark VI Marines is really nice. I do love these miniatures.
A lot of you probably know that Mark VI is my favourite mark of Space Marine armour. Followed by Mark 4 and 5, which I can't decide which one I like more. Mark 3 I think is middling, and then Mark 2 is by far the worst. Just looks a mess to me. I also like Mark 7, but that's not really a heresy thing yet, is it? So today's big question is, what's your favourite mark of Space Marine armour? To glue the plastic parts together, we use plastic cement. I have a selection of 3 that I like to use. Extra thin quick drying, and the normal gloopy stuff. For most of this project, we will be using the extra thin stuff. Firstly, we have to glue the torso together on the Marine. That leaves us with this. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice he's still missing his head, arms and second leg, but don't worry, we're getting to that. Here we have the Marine's leg, all cleaned up and ready to glue on. With that leg stuck on, we have this. You can also see here that I forgot to clean the mould lines up on this particular Marine. But don't worry though, we did tidy that up as we went along. If you don't clean up your mould lines, they will show through on your paintwork, and that can look a little shoddy. Sometimes you do miss the odd one or two, usually it's on the old inside of the leg or something. This week we have been mostly watching Miniscape. He's made a wonderful video where he restores and paints up some old Imperial Fist Space Marine bikers. They're really nice and I strongly urge you to go and check it out.
This is my yellow base coat, which admittedly looks pale for now, but bear with me, dear viewer.
Okay, for our standard bearer, we want to be using the holding a hat arm. However, we want them in full Mark 6, so we're going to have to cut this hand off and stick it to a Mark 6 helmet. It's going to be rather fiddly, so wish us luck.
Good luck.
Here is how it came out. I have to be honest here and say I didn't think we'd be able to pull this off without wrecking the hand, but I think we did it. And I'm very happy. I almost decided against doing this, but I'm glad we went through with it in the end. And as the motto of the SAS says, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em. No, hang on. Who dares wins.
We need an arm to attach that helmet hand to. Helmet hand?
Yeah.
And this is the one provided. It's a bit bland, isn't it? And here it is, attached. It's glued on at the wrist, so we will leave this one to dry thoroughly before moving on. I think we refer to this as Patience.
Now, fun fact, my dear old mother had a friend who was called Patience. As a little kid, she scared the living shit out of me because she was a scary old lady. She also seemed to keep hundreds of various different types of guinea fowl in her garden. Peacocks and those weird ones that don't even look real. They have a strange black and white texture to them. I've no idea what they're called. Probably just guinea fowl. One of the leftovers from the conversion is this half a helmet. I think it will make a nice piece of scenery for a base or something. To make a standard bearer, we need a standard, and this is the one we're going with. The big sheet version, as opposed to the stick with the big dinner plates on it. This standard comes in two main pieces, the banner and the shaft. The shaft attaches to the banner about halfway down. Again, it's a small joint, so we shall have to give this a long time to dry before we begin fiddling with it some more. It's probably best to leave these really thin parts to dry overnight. Make sure they're dry and secure. But I normally just put them to the end of my assembly factory line. Now, we were going to build the standard bearer using the pose from the instructions, but after seeing this filthy Iron Warrior on the back of the box, I think it looks a lot better, so we've decided to build this one instead. To build this one, we need some of the other Mark 6 torso and leg parts. Putting those together gives us this walking forwards pose. Do you guys ever change your mind halfway through your builds? Or is it just me that has terrible indecisiveness? Oh, it's really windy outside today. It sounds like LV426.
Here's our next hugely exciting part, an arm. For some reason, Marcel has attached it to a big blob of blue tack. I've no idea why this is. Maybe so it doesn't get lost? We attached that arm to our standard, which is now fully dry. Marcel didn't leave it overnight as he went for a cycle ride and had his lunch.
Now I'm out for a cycle ride because I have to lose 40 kilograms. I'm borderline obese at the moment, according to my BMI on the government website, and I feel I need to do something about that ASAP. Do you guys have any tips on losing weight? Here we have the standard attached to the Marine. I think it looks really nice. We do, however, have a bit of a lean forward, which I feel we need to rectify. A little bit of a tactical rock under his front foot lifts it a couple of millimeters and straightens up the banner a little. A little effort for a lot of result. I've tested it with blue tack, but we will swap it out for something more solid later down the line. Now here, if you look at the top of the banner, you can see there's space for a big banner topper. They probably have a proper name, but I don't know it. Is it a boss? There's loads of different topper options in the kit. Some nice looking eagles and some more subtle winged plates. Some suit a Loyalist army and some traitors. Which piece would you choose? Now sadly, at this point of the build, I still hadn't decided on which legion I wanted to paint. So we shall return to this banner topper later. Now on a recent trip to Warhammer World, we found this old diorama. I was fascinated by the dead Space Marine details on it. Are you able to identify this diorama by these blood angels? It is quite a famous one. Now, as our man isn't wearing a hat, we have to decide on a head. I like the look of the bald one on the right. The other one looks too detailed, and the third one has hair. He looks far too tidy. With that head stuck on, we have this. We don't use bare heads very often, but for this guy, we shall make an exception. Again, there was a choice of shoulder pads, but we decided to go with these. A slightly more detailed version of Mark VI. They have spikier bonding studs instead of balls, and a nice rim around the edge. What are your views on rims? Do you like them or not? Now, a Marine wouldn't be a Marine unless he had a backpack. This is just a standard Mark VI Marine backpack. There's no weird fandangled version this time. With all those parts stuck on, we have this. The standard bearer is now built. We think he looks really good, and we're looking forward to painting him. But first we have to build the rest of the command squad. Now, standard bearers have always been a staple of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Although there are a lot less flags and banners waving around today, which I feel is a bit of a shame. I feel we need more of them, especially on vehicles. I think they look really cool on those. What do you think? Would you like to see them return en masse, like back in the day? Or do you like the clean look without them?
To build the last 4, we need the last 3 sets of legs and torsos. We built one at the start and didn't use it, remember? Putting all those parts together gives us this. 2 wide poses and another walker.
I always prefer the walking poses as opposed to the random horse riding stance poses, but it is nice to have a mix. One of the weapons for these guys is a shield. A pretty simple looking shield design. No weird or wonderful shapes this time, which to be honest, I prefer. We also have these little handle holding hands which need attaching. These things are tiny, so be careful you don't lose them when you remove them from the sprue. Attaching those hands to the shields is really very simple. They all glue in the same way. You can't get them upside down as they have little shapes that only allow them to be pushed together a certain way. Although if you did put loads of polystyrene cement on them, it would be possible to melt them into the wrong position. So be careful with that. For the other arms, we have these swords and the arms they attach to. The swords again look really rather simple. You might even want to use the term basic. If you wanted to, these would be pretty easy to swap out for other weapons, I think. We spent a little bit of time working out poses as they articulate at both the shoulder and the wrist, allowing for a fair amount of posability. We ended up with these, a nice little bit of variation. All the shield holding arms are also very basic. They all look very similar, just slightly different degrees of bend at the elbows. Using this posability, we came up with these poses. We think they look quite cool. We have one posing guy, a ready stance guy, a barging forward guy, and a sizing you up like a poor man's Sigismund guy. Is young Sigismund still considered the best duelist in the Horus Heresy? If I remember correctly, Sevatar was also up there with the best. I would assume Khan is up there as well somewhere. And maybe that Blood Angels guy, what's his name? Ratatouille? I've forgotten. Not Raphael. Ralderon? I can't remember.
Mark VI Marine kits are notorious for these 2-part bobbly shoulder pads. We have a method of gluing these together which doesn't leave you with nasty gaps and seam lines. Pull up a chair and have a look. We start by lining up the 2 halves and putting them next to each other. We then apply some extra thin polystyrene cement. This will seep into the gap and also dry a lot faster than the thick stuff. Then quickly, before it's dry, push the 2 halves together on your flat surface. We use a fair amount of glue so it melts it more and seeps into the join, filling it up. And that's it! Just don't touch them again until they are fully dry.
Also, you might notice they dry very glossy, but don't worry about that as they will paint up fine. Now, if you want to get your hands on your own Mark VI command squad to build and paint, there's a link in the description below and also one up here somewhere. It also comes in a Mark III kit if you'd prefer that. With those shoulder pads halves glued together and fully dry, we're now able to add them to the Marines. It's not just the bobbly ones, we also have the smooth pads for the other side of the Marines' shoulders. Now remember, the bobbly ones go on the Marine's left shoulder and the smooth on the right. We've never managed to get this wrong, but there's always a chance. With the shoulder pads glued on and also on the correct shoulders, we are already nearing completion. Just a few more details to go. Next up, it's the heads. Like I said before, I fancy using just the clean Mark 6 helmets, as I find the ones in the box just a little too detailed. I think we're going to use these for Artificer Armour Sergeants down the road somewhere. Now I myself like my Marines to look quite clean. I don't like a lot of unnecessary detail. I do know that some of you out there do like the detail though, so you must do what you think looks good. Now speaking of good, if you're enjoying this video then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Matthew. And remember, Mrs. Snakeworks has said that when we hit 10,000 subscribers, we're allowed to order a Warhound Titan, so please smash that subscribe button and we can hit that target ASAP. If you are enjoying the content on the channel then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Or you can even become a channel member, which is becoming all the rage these days. Again, there's a link to that in the description below. Anyway, that's enough e-begging, let's continue on.
Now, while we put our paints away, I just want to give a massive loving shout out to all our Patreons and channel members. Dan Yallop, Lee Blackley, Donald, Pine Tree, Bobzilla, Charles Marlowe, Andrew Marrington, Nick Ellingham, Bryers and Bantams, Timbo, Sven V, and our newest member, SDKFZ Forge World. Thank you all so much for supporting us. We love you all.
When attaching the heads, we tried our best to have them looking in the direction which made sense with the posers, looking into whatever action they're performing. We're very pleased with how the posers have turned out. With those heads attached, you'd be forgiven for thinking we're done, but we're not, are we? There's one more part to add. The backpacks. Now with these, there's always an annoying mould line that runs around the top of the backpack, along the venti pipey parts and over the ribbed section. It's a pain to tidy up, but we always try our best. With the backpacks attached, the Space Marine Mark 6 Command Squad appears to be built. But wait, there's still a part missing. We talked about it earlier on in the video. Can you remember what it was? Well, it was the banner pole topper. We've finally decided on a Legion, but we're still not sure if we'd like to play them as Loyalist or Traitor, so I felt this one was the most on the fence, as it were. We can leave the wings on for Loyalists or just snip them off later if we fancy going Traitor, or not bother at all. I will let you guys guess as to which Legion we've picked, but some of you over in our Discord probably already know. Now, if you fancy coming to chat Heresy Legion painting choice or anything else hobby related, then please feel free to come and join us on our friendly Discord server, which is not behind a paywall. Again, there's a link to that in the description below or up here somewhere. We look forward to chatting to you there. Alright then, without further ado, shall we check out the finished article? And here we have it, the fully built and complete Mark 6 Command Squad with Standard Bearer.
I think these guys look really nice. The Standard Bearer looks really good and the sword and shields make for great looking Space Marines.
We only used a few of the parts from the command sprue, and there are loads of interesting bits left to go in the bits box for use down the road. Very handy indeed.
We would, however, have liked a few top knots in the kit, but you can't have everything, I suppose.
We're really looking forward to cracking on with the painting of these. We've literally just placed an order for the paints needed to do it, so expect to see these painted on the channel soon.
Done!
Well done.
If you want to see some more videos in this Horus Heresy series, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.